Huawei this last week just launched a ton of new devices. I've already done the Mate 20 Pro walkthrough and the Mate 20 RS, but let's also talk about the little brother in the family. This is my complete walkthrough on the Mate 20. Now, if you're not familiar, a complete walkthrough on this channel is where I try to go through every feature I possibly can on a new device so that you guys are better prepared should you actually be in the market to go buy one. Now, for anyone who's seen the Mate 20 RS or the Mate 20 Pro walkthroughs of mine, there is going to be a lot of similarities because they're all part of the same family, so just fair warning. But with that said, there is a lot to cover, so let's get started with the design. And first, I just have to say that with the P20 and the P20 Pro from last year and now with these new phones, there's this sense that Huawei is paying a lot more attention to design language and trying to make their devices uniquely theirs. Now, the P series is meant to resemble a camera from behind, while this new look for the Mate series that I imagine they'll continue isn't on any other popular device that I know of. And I kind of like it. Now, we have curved glass on the back, but unlike the Mate 20 Pro, it actually does not have curved edges. It has a straight edge, but it still feels pretty nice in the hand. And it comes in 5 colors. 2 gradient colors, pink gold and the new Twilight that goes from black to purple to blue, instead of the old one that went from green to blue to purple. It's a more pronounced color because of that. We have a new texture that Huawei is calling Hyper Optical Display Pattern that is a featherline pattern with a vinyl texture to make it less slippery, apparently. You can even scratch it to make that vinyl sound. It'll come in midnight blue and emerald green in that new texture, and for those who want it, we have plain old black. On the left, we have the SIM card tray. On the right, we have our different colored power button and our volume buttons. On the top, we have an IR blaster that can be used with the included app to control TVs, air conditioning units, and a bunch of other things so long as they have an IR receiver. And we also have a 3.5mm headphone jack. On the bottom, we have our USB-C port that we use with Huawei's 22.5 watt supercharged system that can get the device from 0 to 58% in 30 minutes. Now, this is compared to the 70% in 30 minutes of the 40 watt system in the Pro, as well as we have our speaker. Also, that dual SIM card slot can use the SIM2 card slot for a new type of memory called nano memory, apparently. It's the same size as a nano SIM, but there is no word yet on the pricing or availability of this memory. If any of you guys might know, let us know in the comments below. The device is IP53 water resistant, so occasional drops of water in it are fine, but this rating means that even if you're caught in the rain, you should try to put it away as soon as possible. And if it gets submerged in water, it'll most likely kill it. It's powered by the new Kirin 980 chipset that is a dual NPU for machine learning, an 8-core CPU that Huawei claims is 75% more powerful and 58% more power efficient, and a new GPU. And I definitely think it feels snappier than the Mate 10 Pro, the Mate 10, even the P20 and the P20 Pro for that matter. Paired with this is the option of either 4 gigs or 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage. Now on the front, we have a 6.53-inch 2244 by 1080 18.7 by 9 aspect ratio LCD HDR display that is RGBW instead of the more common RGB. Now, without getting too technical, this means that it has the same red, green, and blue LEDs per chip we're used to, but it also adds a dedicated white LED that can be used to produce a purer white than the normal way of turning the red, blue, and green to full brightness, as well as adding the white to the other colors to just get more shades of color. Now, besides this, the screen also has a kinder dewdrop, as Huawei is calling it, notch shape. In this notch, we have the same 24 megapixel f2.0 front-facing camera, but none of the 3D face scanning tech. This doesn't mean that you can't use the Face Unlock, however, as most Android devices have a version of this that just uses the camera. Now, it's less secure, less accurate, and slightly slower, but if you want to use it, it is still there. Speaking of security, we have a fingerprint sensor located on the back under the camera as opposed to the in-screen one of the Mate 20 Pro. And something else to note about the design, it's actually not smaller than the Mate 20 Pro. I would actually say that it's a hair shorter, but it's also a hair wider. And finally, we have 1.4 gigabit per second LTE, Wi-Fi 802.11ac, Bluetooth 5.0, and a massive 4,000 milliamp battery. For software, it's running Android Pie with EMUI 9, which is Huawei's custom user interface running on top. Since it is similar to any other version of Android, and especially any other EMUI device, I won't go through every single piece of the software. But here's the software that Huawei has installed and some of the bigger software changes. Firstly, you can choose between the traditional Android software buttons at the bottom of the screen or use a gesture-based system. The gesture system lets you swipe from the left or right sides of the screen to go back, up from the bottom of the phone to go home, up from the bottom and hold it to get to multitasking, and up from a corner to get to Google Assistant. You can choose between no app drawer and all of your apps are on the home screen, or the more traditional dotted icon to get to your app drawer. We have our usual shortcuts in the notification shade that can be customized and swapped out for others. And for included apps, we have the following: App Gallery, which is Huawei's app store. Backup, which is an app that allows you to back up your device to an internal storage or an external device. Booking.com, which is just bloatware for Booking.com. Huawei's Health, which is Huawei's own health tracking app for steps, etc. HiCare, which is Huawei's customer service app for support. Mirror, a weird app that lets you use the device as a mirror, but it basically just opens the front-facing camera and puts a border around it. Music, which is Huawei's music app to play music back as well as buy new songs. Phone Clone that lets you copy all of your apps and data from or to another device. Phone Manager that lets you monitor and adjust the performance, storage space, and battery usage. Recorder, which is an audio recording app. SIM Toolkit, which is an app to manage each of the dual SIMs. Smart Remote, which is the app I mentioned earlier to use the IR Blaster to control devices. Themes, which is a place to download or buy new themes or skins. Tips, which is an app to help you learn more about the device. Torch, which when you tap the button will turn the LED on as a flashlight. Microsoft Translator, which is a specialized version of the Microsoft Translator app from the Play Store that is optimized for the NPU in the Kirin chipset. And Wallet, which is Huawei's own version of Android Pay. Now in the back we have our new 3-camera system tuned by Leica that thankfully has lost the monochrome sensor in exchange for 3 different focal lengths, which I think is way more useful. We have a 12 megapixel main camera with an f1.8 aperture and a standard focal length. Then we have a 2x optical zoom, 8 megapixel f2.4 lens that is optically stabilized, thankfully. And finally, we have the new wide angle lens replacing the monochrome that is a 16 megapixel f2.2 equivalent of a 17 millimeter lens. You can switch between the cameras using the same button at the bottom of the viewfinder to go from 0.6 times super wide to the normal angle to the 2x optical telephoto. Now, inside the camera UI, we have Huawei Lens. Now, this shortcut allows you to use their version of Google Lens that identifies items for search, for shopping, images, etc. Then we have our flash options. We have Motion, which is essentially live photo from the iPhone, which takes a small clip before and after a photo is taken that will be played back in the gallery. Color, you can select from standard, vivid, and smooth coloring, which mimic Leica film stocks, I'm told. Aperture, this allows you to mimic a faster aperture with a blurred background. Now this is similar to portrait mode, but this will work on any object, whereas portrait is meant for people. You can also select between the 1 and 2 times zooms. Portrait does the same trick for the blurred background as aperture, but it will only work if it recognizes a face. And also it adds a beautification feature to smooth skin, etc., which I always find terrifying. We also have 3D lighting effects that can add stained glass reflections, shadows from blinds, and other cheesy lighting effects. Photo, now this is our usual auto mode for taking photos. You can shoot from 8 megapixels in 18:9 aspect to 12 megapixels in 4:3. Video, which is our usual auto mode for taking videos. You can shoot from 720p all the way up to 4K 30. Pro, this is a mode that allows you to control various camera settings like ISO, shutter speed, etc. Food basically just ups the saturation. We also have slow-mo that you can do 720p video in 960 frames per second for short 0.2 second bursts, and either have it automatically take a burst when something moves through the square in the center, or you can manually control when it does take these bursts. You can also go to 240 frames per second and 120 frames per second as well. Personally, I like the 120 frames per second. I think it's slow enough and it looks surprisingly good. Panorama, the normal panorama mode that stitches photos together to make a larger image. Monochrome. Now for anyone sad about the monochrome sensor being removed in favor of the wide angle one, don't worry, as there is still a monochrome mode. It just uses software instead of the specific sensor. Again, think that's just makes way more sense to me. AR lens. Now even though we don't have the more complex sensors in the notch like we do with the Mate 20 Pro, Huawei still allows you to use the front camera to control their AR lenses. Think Animoji. Light painting. This is a special mode to allow for using a source of light, like a flashlight for example, to draw on an image. HDR, still don't understand why this is here as a mode on its own on Huawei devices, as the camera automatically turns this on in normal mode. But there you go. Time lapse allows you to take a video that is then sped up. Filters, think Instagram filters basically. Watermarks, think location tags basically. Document scanner lets you take a photo of a document and it'll try its best to mimic a scan. And download. You can use this area to download other camera modes, I guess, whenever they become available. And one of my favorite features from the P20 series has made its way to the Mate 20 and the Mate 20 Pro, which is called night mode. Now this takes a long exposure shot that then uses some software magic to overlay the different exposures over the image to create a crisper, better exposed overall shot. Now other devices can do something similar, but this is the only one I've found that can do such a long exposure, and that because of the software stabilization, it can actually negate your handshake, which normally would result in images with streaks in it, even from a much more expensive camera. Now quickly in camera settings, we have GPS tag, which adds location metadata for the photo for organizational reasons. Add watermark, which adds a watermark to the bottom left of every photo you take. Not sure why you'd want that, but okay. Master UI, which is the usual AI camera helper we're used to now that can recognize various scenes and automatically adjust the camera settings for that scene. The new addition here is that it now also adjusts to the different lenses based on what you're shooting. So for example, it'll automatically switch to wide angle lens when it thinks you're trying to take a photo of a landscape. Now, I always turn this off on every phone as I find that it never does what I want, and frankly, the addition of the switching lens thing is even more obnoxious in my opinion. Also, it's interesting to note that Huawei leaves this off by default. Assistive grid, which turns on different grids to help you line up shots in the frame. I personally always use the rule of thirds one. Mirror reflection, which turns the camera view around and makes it more resemble a mirror. Mute turns off the camera sounds. Timer lets you choose between different second timers from when you push the shutter button to when the photo is actually taken. Audio control allows you to say cheese to take a photo or have it automatically take a photo whenever the noise around you gets to a certain decibel level, aka loud. Capture smiles, have it automatically take a photo whenever it recognizes a smile in the viewfinder. 4D predictive focus. Now this is actually a clever use of the AI on the device, I think. It can recognize the subject, be it a person, a dog, etc., and automatically track that person with the autofocus, and it seems to be pretty accurate, honestly, and pretty quick. And finally, we have Ultra Snapshot. Now, you can choose whether you want to automatically take a photo when you double tap the volume down button, have it open the camera, which is my preferred setting, or do nothing. But it's good to note that this only works whenever the lock screen is visible, and it doesn't work from within anywhere else in the UI like other ones do, and I kind of wish that it did. There you guys, as much as I could possibly squeeze in on the device with the short time that I had it. Let me know what you guys think of this complete walkthrough series. Do you want them longer, shorter, all that other fun stuff? Anything else you'd like to see me add or take away even? Would love to hear from you guys. Always trying to make this better. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook at The Unlocker with an E missing in the word unlocker for more photos of these devices and from these devices and all the other devices that have launched here in October. It's been a crazy month. But regardless, as always, thanks for watching.